This town hall meeting is part of our efforts and part of our work to implement our plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion at Stony Brook University. It's really an opportunity, I hope, to tell you what we've been doing. As we've talked about from the beginning when we devised this plan back in May, this was not a plan that was going to sit on a shelf. This was a plan that was going to be implemented. And part of this work is to touch bases with you, the people who really make up the plan. And I think that's really important. Sometimes I hear people talk about the president's plan for diversity. And of course, it's not the president's plan for diversity. It's Stony Brook University's plan for diversity. It's your plan for diversity. It's our plan for diversity. And if it's not inclusive, it's certainly not going to achieve the goals that we need to achieve. And so we continue to work on this. Since we unveiled the plan in May, there's been multiple meetings, and many of the people in this room have been involved in the process, and I thank each and every one of you for your efforts in this area. I think it's been going, from my point of view, I think we've been making progress, and again, part of the purpose of today is to update you on some of the progress, but at the same time, stop and pause and ask, what are we doing well, but what could we be doing better, and what are questions do you have about our activities and how they can improve and so on. So that's incredibly important. So we'll cover some of the highlights, but then, as I say, we'll take time for questions. And we have a number of people, again, who've been engaged in leading in this who will be presenters, including the two MCs, which I'll introduce in just a second. I don't need to tell you that we've had very difficult times in our country over the past few months. One of the most divisive elections, I think, in history. One of the most unpleasant, I think, to experience for all of us. And I think major issues, I think, for us as a country. But I think that makes what we're doing with this plan more important than it's ever been. It makes our mission at Stony Brook University, our mission of educating people, of preparing them for a future, but educating them and in a climate and a culture of diversity and inclusion, more important than it's ever been before. So I think while we had a sense of urgency about this mission from the beginning, I feel it redoubled as I look at what's happening in our country now. So I think it's very important that we do what we do. And again, I appreciate what everyone is doing. And I hope you recognize, and I hope we all have, an unwavering commitment to the concepts of diversity, inclusion, and equity on our campus. And I think this plan is a part of it. Our efforts for he, for she are a part of that. But that has to be something we're not shying away from or pulling away from as we move forward. So what are the highlights so far? There's a number of things. I'm just going to go through a few of them. We've really, as I said before, I presented to the University Council. That's the equivalent of the cabinet for the university. At that time, I told them some of the same message I just delivered here, that this is their plan. Again, it's not my plan, it's their plan. They have to be engaged in it. But more than that, I'm holding people accountable for progress. I'm holding vice presidents accountable for progress in their areas in terms of the diversity of their staff and how they hire. I'm holding deans responsible in terms of the diversity of their staff and their faculty and their students and the student body overall for the university. So when we talk about enrollment and talk about engagement, I'm holding people accountable for performance there. I'm being held accountable essentially by you and everyone for this program, but accountability in the delivery of this program I think is incredibly important. We've talked about that. We created a website that outlines what we're doing for the diversity plan, and we'll refer to it in a second. And it also contains the events that are associated with many programs are ongoing associated with diversity, and the website includes those programs. The READY project, which you'll hear more about in a second. And I see Robbie is here. We'll hear more about. Yes, right in front of me. I knew you were here. Just lost you for a second. So Robbie is here, and we'll talk more about Robbie Kincaid. We'll talk more about that plan in a second. But many people have already undergone this seminar, which I think is proving extraordinarily valuable for people in helping them identify some of their hidden biases and ways in which we may discriminate unintentionally but can have serious consequences. And one of the things that I've been talking to people about is my belief is that every faculty member, every staff member who's going to serve on a search committee should undergo this kind of training. I do not necessarily have the ability to make it mandatory for everybody, but that would be my strong recommendation as people self-screen and say, if I'm going to sit on one of these positions of authority, of decision-making, I need to have this kind of training so I can do it well. And so that's a bar that I'm setting for all of the senior leadership, but I hope will extend throughout the university. And we're searching for the chief diversity officer for for the university, a very important position in terms of, again, the implementation of this plan. Again, someone we can all work with to help make sure this plan is implemented. Not to say that the buck's being passed or that we're not going to be engaged, because the engagement from senior leadership will remain very strong, but we want to have someone, a point person for this. And we're doing a number of efforts to extend accessibility. And Marjorie Leonard has been appointed as the ADA coordinator, and I see Marjorie there in the back. Hello, Marjorie. She's taking that on along with her responsibilities for Title IX, but we're not losing track of the importance. When we talk about diversity on our campus, we're using a broad term for diversity. So we're talking about gender equity, we're talking about ability, we're talking about race, we're talking about ethnicity, we're talking about age, we're talking about gender, we're talking about sexual orientation, we're talking about veteran status. We're using a broad definition of diversity because we, again, want this to be a welcoming campus for everyone who's here. We have been analyzing our data, so we actually have a fair amount of data collected in this area. And again, I have breakdowns for all areas in terms of, for example, how many people of color may be employed in a particular area. These are important things, what the breakdown for faculty is in terms of gender. We have this kind of data available to us to help us analyze who's performing well in this area, who's really making efforts in this area. We have a chosen and preferred name policy implemented. Again, took a lead ahead of SUNY essentially in getting this done. We thought it was very important for our campus. We've created a Campus Unity Council, again, to help us talk to each other, to help bring people together, to help in promoting unity on the campus. And one of the things we've been doing, because we know there's issues between the relationship with police and the community. Of course, that's been a significant issue all across the country. We want to make sure that the lines of communication at Stony Brook are open between our police force and our students, faculty, and staff. And so we've hosted a number of events to bring them together, including sporting events to bring people together. There's lots of ways you can connect people. It's not always about sitting in a room talking, but sometimes by events you get to know each other better. But we want people to know each other. So if people have to confront each other in a time of emergency, there's already at least a concept of having seen somebody before, of recognizing a face, of having met them in another venue or area that I think can make a difference. So this is an important part of what we're trying to do. We're really trying to do more to train students as they come in. Because one of the things we've recognized, we've talked a lot. We've talked in the past because we've had students talk to us about issues they've had with faculty and staff in terms of not being respected, in terms of being made to feel uncomfortable or different in classes. But that happens with other students as well. So we're reaching out earlier, even before students get on campus. We're starting education in areas to help them. And we've changed our orientation to feature more about issues around bias, about gender, programs like He for She, Green Dot, Red Watch Band, all are being featured earlier on for students. We want to get them engaged from the beginning and help them understand the culture of the community they're coming to so they can fit in and make their important contributions. And this is about new employee orientation as well, which we're changing the way we're doing new employee orientation again to have more education for people in these critical issues. So all of these are things that are going on. We're doing a number of other things, I think, which will come up in the presentations as other people present at this town hall meeting today. But I wanted to turn it over now to the MCs, Marvin Colson, Shmita Majundam Das, Majumar.
That's great.
Das, yeah, close, but not right. Das, and I just know her so well as Smita, basically.
Yes.
But two people who really are co-chairing the advisory council for our work, and they'll go through more some of the nuts and bolts of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, President Stanley. So I'm going to take...
at this point, we're going to just introduce ourselves. Smita Marvin, I'm from the School of Social Welfare, and we're co-chairs of the Diversity Plan Advisory Council. And we'll be doing a tag team MC process for the next 40 minutes. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Manjar Das.
Smita is good.
Smita is good.
Don't mess with my last name. It gets confusing very quickly. So as for next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the structure. Then we're going to hear from Robbie and our working group chairs, a couple of our working group chairs, and end with a question and answer session. So as President Stanley said, implementation is a priority for plan development. So just to make sure that things get done in the way they get done, we need to make sure that we have inclusive structure and there's accountability in the structure. So talking a little bit about the structure, it's been divided into 3 areas. One is the steering committee. Oh, certificates.
You have it?
Okay. One is the steering committee. So the steering committee membership is made up of all campus leadership and the chairs of the working group. The purpose of the steering committee is basically to set the priorities, handle any emerging issues or problems, also look into funding, how to fund some of the important initiatives that we are talking about, bring other campus leaders in the fold to kind of increase the membership, and at the end of the day, accountability. So letting the president know the updates, what's going on, letting all the stakeholders know what's going on. So steering committee is charged to do all these important parts of the plan. The next part of this really important piece is the advisory council. I'm the co-chair of the advisory council. Now, the advisory council membership is a diverse group of students, faculty, and staff from all different walks of campus who come together monthly to talk about what's going on. And some of the really important pieces, like they are the ambassadors to the diversity plans in different areas that they go back to campus. So what we do, we review existing efforts that's going on campus, because there's a lot of things that's happening on campus already. We also review ideas and strategies that the working group presents and the steering committee looks at. We also raise concerns because we are the ambassadors to different areas of campus. We definitely know a lot more at the ground level that's happening. So bringing it back to the advisory council so they can feed it back to the steering committee as well as the working group, and definitely provide feedback on the suggested implementation and steps that we need to take. So, and today you will hear from another student who is a part of the advisory council and will be able to give you his insights on that. So, and working group, they are like actually the meat and potatoes of the entire plan. So there are 8 working groups focusing on different areas of campus. And if you haven't had the chance, please go to the website and read about their work in detail. But so they worked very diligently all through summer, and they have submitted their first set of priorities to the steering committee, which will be reviewed, and then the advisory council will review them, and hopefully in moving forward, we'll get the first implementation plan done. So right now, we will hear from one of our working group chairs, Lou DeOnis, and he's...
and last names are problems.
Yes, that's fine. I shared that. And he's the interim chief HR officer at the Stony Brook Medicine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. First, on behalf of my co-chairs, Bill Johnson and Marjorie Leonard, I have to say that we're absolutely pleased and enthusiastic about working with this plan. It's a university-wide initiative, and we certainly need everyone's help in achieving some of our very lofty goals. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've been working on. The first objective really has been around enhancing the onboarding process. What we're looking at is some regular follow-up, 30, 90-day surveys, both electronically, in person, with the employee, to find out what's going on. Are they have the resources? The emphasis of it is really employee engagement and making sure that there is that connection between a supervisor and an employee, and the employee and other employees that they work with. We want to make sure that that's happening. Studies show that when that happens, it's less likely that turnover will happen with any group within the first year. Again, we put a lot of energy and effort and resources into recruiting good people here. We don't want to lose them. The new hire paperwork too. Our talent management system has been out for a little over a year now. The next module that's supposed to come on board is our electronic onboarding process. So there will be standardization throughout the university, different areas on, again, delivery of the survey, reminding managers of certain things that they should be doing to standardize the onboarding process. The new employee orientation. We've been working on making the new employee orientation, again, more engaging, more focused to our environment, our philosophy, and including more information about diversity, inclusiveness, and equity. So we're creating tools, like I said, for managers to standardize that onboarding process. And we also challenge the supervisors, managers, those in the hiring process to, this is our program, as Dr. Stanley said. We are all part of this. We each bring a different lens that we look at issues and employees with. All right. Great. Right, so the second accomplishment is increasing our outreach. Working on efforts to increase the outreach in the community, to increase the diversity of our applicant pools. So the Human Resources Group and the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity have been working on conducting different job fairs, working with different groups of individuals, including the African American and Black Association, the Urban League, United Negro College Fund, and some other, I want to say, minority-based organizations and community to help our outreach locally and at the national level. So also, we're working with the National Institution for People with Disabilities. Again, it's not only a race issue, that we have had programs in the past on campus, and now we're doing some renewed efforts to revitalize some of those partnerships so we can be more inclusive. Again, I'm not going to press the more time you say it, it's needed to be said that we're all part of this plan, and your help is absolutely needed. So what are we doing in the future? Well, we're looking at, we used to, again, have a welcome wagon. It was sort of a buddy system that when new employees came onto the university, that you were linked with somebody that could help you navigate the university, navigate Long Island, the different communities that potentially people from out of state or out of the area would have, they would need help with, not knowing anything around here. Trying to develop, again, a very comprehensive onboarding plan, because onboarding is just rolling out. We're going to start on the more simple side, and then as the year progresses, be able to build on that. We're also looking, we have exit interview programs, but we're looking to enhance that. Feedback on exit interview programs is historically very low, but there are also some things that we can do organizationally to increase those numbers and also get some reliable information back that we will be able to use and refocus efforts to improve the workplace. In our educational plans, again, including and providing more diversity awareness, again, the implicit bias program. Marilyn Haig is working right now on that with getting our leadership primed for the training, and then also how we're able to utilize that specifically for the clinically based people at the hospital. So we can, like Dr. Stanley said, that we are able to really fully utilize some peer interviewing and utilize employees in addition to supervisors in making hiring decisions. Right, and again, just continuing to work with various groups around the campus and university on plans of diversifying inclusion and equity on the campus. So, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Judy Griman. I'm Chief Deputy to the President and Vice President for Government and Community Relations, and I'm sort of being a pinch hitter for Dean Eklund and Dr. Shelley Germana, who couldn't be here. They're the chairs of the Undergraduate Student Working Group, and that's sort of, it's a very large group. It deals with all areas of student engagement, student from curriculum to climate to broad representation on the group, and they've been very active. A significant number of committees and number of meetings, and most of the reason for that is that when they took a look at the plan, there are about 69 elements in the plan, and at least 40 relate to the student experience. And so they really have devoted a significant amount of time to getting through that. You'll see on there are the committee members, the number of dates, there are subcommittees, What I'm doing is they sort of have some 15 key strategies for 2017, and they've listed 5 here, which really are from each of the 5 different committees, subcommittees. So, and they've essentially given those 15 key strategies to the steering committee to review. We're all taking a look at that to move into the implementation during 2017. But some of their key areas. Requiring all new students to attend a 1-hour course on diversity and gender during opening weekend. That's already been started, and I think that they're refining the class, and that came out of Shelley Germano's curriculum subcommittee. Jarvis Watson and the engagement committee are working at reestablishing a diversity fellows program. It's a program that was at Stony Brook for some time ago, and did a lot of work at facilitating conversations, facilitating events around diversity, and so they're looking at reestablishing that. The third one is on the climate subcommittee, is looking at, we've already started some programs for our international students and students for whom English is not their first language, primary language. And so we've done some things like the football team did a football 101 with the students that was quite successful. And so they're looking at doing some more of those to help to integrate students more onto the campus. The recruitment committee, led by Judy Burhannon, has, and with Rodney Morrison's help, has done a significant amount of work at laying out different things to do throughout the recruitment season to help students we get a lot of applicants, and we need to now convert those applicants and those enrolled students into students who are coming here. And so they're doing a significant body of work around bringing students onto campus and having some of our current students connect with potential students, and a range of activities that they're working on and that we're putting some funding around. And then the last subcommittee is developing a series of training that I think is extending, both working with the Ready Project, which you'll hear about, and extending some of that into some more cultural sensitivity and anti-bias training throughout the institution, working with Robbie. So that's sort of the quick version of the undergraduate working group, and I move on to introduce Nancy Gore, who's professor of chemistry and co-chair with Dr. Jenny Williams, who's there. Graduate, postgraduate, doctoral, and professional student working group.
Thank you, Judy.
And yeah.
So I want to acknowledge Jenny Williams, who has led this working group with me. We have a working group. I didn't list the names. They're all on the Diversity Plan website if you choose to go there, which I hope you will for lots of reasons. But our working group has graduate students, medical and dental students, postdocs, faculty and staff on it. And I want to especially thank the medical school students who have met with us separately to express their concerns and their interests so that we could make sure that those are addressed. We focused on 3 different areas, which are recruiting, persistence and success once students come, and culture and climate more generally. And we're very fortunate at Stony Brook to have in the graduate school the Center for Inclusive Education, which focuses on helping in all of these areas for underrepresented minority groups, primarily focused in the doctoral programs and to a lesser extent the master's programs as well as the professional schools. But the only program that they have focused on professional students, or that includes professional school students explicitly, is the Turner Fellowship Program, which is funded by the state. Most of the programs in the CIE are supported by the National Science Foundation or the National Institutes of Health, and are focused on STEM PhD students largely. And so you can go ahead to the next thing. We're using the expertise of the CIE, and we think that we should be using the expertise of the CIE more, and focusing it. One of our key recommendations is that their activities be explicitly expanded to include students from the professional schools. And so we're recommending the addition of staff resources focused where there would be somebody in the CIE whose purview would really be professional students, both for recruiting activities, where there's a lot of opportunities for synergy between what the CIE already does and what the Assistant Dean for Diversity does here in the medical school. There's a lot of opportunities for synergy and increased activity for recruiting, but also for creating a community. One of the things that the CIE does particularly well is creating a community for the students from underrepresented minorities, and we would like to see that same kind of community building available for our professional students. We also have heard from the professional students that they would like to have more active mentoring programs, especially earlier on in their time, both mentoring from advanced students and mentoring from faculty. And there are concerns also, I'll get to that. So we want to make sure that the mentoring programs that are currently in CIE for a very limited group of students, for a specific NIH-funded program, that those are expanded more generally to URM students across campus, including both the graduate and professional students. And then another thing that we have heard from students is that they are concerned, you mentioned the clinical setting, and there are concerns in particular about implicit bias and issues that they face in the clinical setting, both from faculty and clinical faculty, and also from residents. And we recognized actually that we need to address the issue of residents where we don't have any explicit plans for increased diversity among residents. But one of the resources we have in the CIE is fantastic research that has been done by Dr. Bonita London from the psychology department on what is most effective in each of these issues, each of these areas of recruiting, persistence and success in culture and climate. And she's been able to share her expertise with us. And so we also recommend that in addition to the awesome READY project that you'll hear about from Robbie Kincaid, that our faculty and our clinical faculty learn more about the issues that can affect student success, the psychosocial factors that can affect student success, things like what are the faculty member or mentor's view, what is that person's view of intelligence? Do they believe that it's a fixed quantity, that we each are born with a certain amount of intelligence, or do they believe in a growth mindset which would suggest that we can learn to be better thinkers, which is what research shows. But Dr. London's research has found that it's not just a matter of whether the student understands the growth mindset, but also whether they feel they are in an environment where their mentors understand a growth mindset. If they feel they are in an environment where the mentors believe in a fixed quantity of intelligence, that affects their success. And so we would like our faculty and our mentors generally to be more aware of this sort of research. That's just one example. And so that's another one of our recommendations. Stella Circa from Pharmacology and
Good afternoon. My name is Stella Circa from the Department of Pharmacology here, and I co-chair the faculty working group with Carol Carter from the Department of Microbiology. She couldn't be here today. Our working group met several times during the summer to try to come up with recommendations that would enhance both the experience and presence of underrepresented faculty on campus. As you can see, there is representation. We try to have representation from all the colleges and all the schools on campus so that we have a much broader idea of how to proceed. The recommendations, the two issues that came up from our meetings is that our working group had to focus on two specific issues. One is to bring more faculty from underrepresented groups on campus, and the second is to make sure that these faculty have a good experience while they're here. So the first, the recruitment subcommittee of our working group recommends that to increase the number of faculty on campus, we need to reach out to organizations, to professional organizations that will allow us to have better access to underrepresented groups and actively recruit those groups. In addition to that, we need to make sure that the world out there knows that Stony Brook is an inclusive place, is a place where diversity is valued. And, we recommend to do that by setting up a conference, a conference that will prepare future faculty either to come here or to go elsewhere, but will set the place that this is where diversity is valued. And then take advantage of the Ready Seminar. We all talk about the Ready Seminar, we hear about that. To make sure that, as President Stanley said, the search committees who recruit those faculty here are aware of implicit bias and to authority job in recruitment. That comes then to the second part of what the faculty person will be doing here, that is integrate, become a happy member of the Stony Brook community, both within the campus and outside of the community. So we think it's important for Stony Brook faculty to be engaged with the community around us and allow the community to understand that the university is a wonderful resource that they need to be engaged with and involved with, both in things like the athletic events, like our Stoller Center events, the health seminars that are happening here in the hospital. Stony Brook University is a resource to the Stony Brook and neighboring communities. It's also important to make sure that our faculty, the faculty we recruit, feel welcome and included. So creation of the social environment for the faculty who will be here is a very important component of quality of life, we think, here. Professional development for the faculty, and who will go out and meet and experience the diversity and inclusion in their specific discipline. And of course, it's going to be very important to show that we have some wonderful faculty from underrepresented groups on campus, and we need to showcase them and show both inside the university and outside of the university how proud we are for them. And back to our plug for the Ready Seminar, we also think for the success of our underrepresented faculty, it will be important to not just have research committees undergo the Ready Seminar, but also the APT committees, the members of the APT committees, to ensure success. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Implicit and explicit biases. One key need identified by our students was for training around rooting out hidden biases in the classroom and on campus. And in response to that, we're going to bring on Robbie Kincaid, who's been brought on as a project director for the READY project, which is responding to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I bring to you Robbie Kincaid.
Good afternoon. It's my hope that you can hear me. I'm not mic'd. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Yes. Good. I like to be heard. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about the READY project. It's been going on since late October, and we've done about 13, 14 seminars for about 20 people per session, so we're really, really rolling it out. This seminar is a seminar, as I've stressed before. It's not a training. Training has to some people a negative connotation. It means that you're going to be taught how to do something. But the READY seminar is much more than just a learning mechanism. It's also an opportunity for the people who participate to work together to come to terms about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it is more of a discussion-based or discussion-oriented event, although there is some didactic materials in the seminar. And like Dr. Stanley alluded to earlier, it is about broadening the definition of diversity so that we're inclusive in all its manifestations, including race, ethnicity, gender, veteran status, disability, LGBTQ+, and so on and so forth. The main purpose of the seminar is to raise awareness of implicit bias. There's a presumption, Maya Angelou, a very, very famous author, wrote that when we know better, we do better. So I think implicit bias, simply by virtue of it being implicit, suggests that it's something that we don't necessarily know that we have, yet many of us have it. So we want to try to raise awareness of implicit bias, and we do that through the dissemination of the seminar. It is experiential in nature, so people who like to be lectured to, that's not what's going to happen at the Ready Seminar. There's no lecture. It is very, very experiential. I would say also about the Ready Seminar, well, it's okay. The dissemination plan. So it's a 6-hour seminar. It requires a full day. Managers are strongly encouraged to allow faculty and staff to have release time so that they can attend for the full day. And what we do in that time is what I had mentioned earlier. The question is, how many faculty and staff do we have at Stony Brook University? Anybody have any idea how large the faculty and staff body is here? It's a lot. So how do we get this, if we're doing 20 people at a time, how do we get this diffused throughout our entire campus? So one way that we're doing that is through a theory that's called diffusion of innovation. And it speaks to how a new idea, Ready, gets disseminated throughout a social system. That system is Stony Brook University. So what we're going to do is, people who attend the seminar, and how many of you attended so far? Oh, good. I like it. Because I'm going to be knocking on your doors and calling you and emailing you. But what we plan to do is people who have gone through the seminar who express an interest and a desire to facilitate the seminar, they go through a 3-day training of facilitator seminar where they would learn how to do the seminar. And in that case, we end up cascading out. I'm one person, and currently one person can't do all of the seminars, so we relied on our campus community, who is very capable of doing the aforementioned. So it'll be a systematic rollout where people come to the seminar, learn about it, go through the training of facilitators, and then they in turn facilitate. Does that mean I'm gone?
You're still there, you're still there.
I'm still here. So the training of facilitators, I just want to touch on that very briefly. This is a 3-day commitment. And right now we're on schedule to have the first training of facilitators on January 12th, 13th, and 14th. Now, some of you may be looking at your watches and your calendars and you're thinking the 14th? That's Saturday. I'm not doing that on Saturday. Yes, yes, yes. Thursday and Friday, again, would be considered release time, but I'm asking that you give up a Saturday. I think it's something that we can think about doing because the training requirement does allow for 3 days of really intense work. So I would ask that you'd be willing to give up that Saturday. And I promise you it would be a decent experience for you. I think you'd really enjoy it. Ongoing communication, talk it up. Those of you who have been to the Ready Seminar, you know the rule, right? What's the rule in Ready? Those of you that have been there. Vegas. We don't tell people what's going on, but do tell people, encourage people to come, okay? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robbie. I think our main goal here is education and students. And so I'm going to bring up forward a young man, Dwayne Moore, who's a senior in sociology, a minor in Africana Studies, who's a member of our advisory council. We welcome Dwayne Moore.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. One of the reasons as a student I found the diversity plan so important and vital. It's because a lot of times we're just unconscious of the things that we do. And what we say is very important because we don't know how it affects people. So if you happen to be a woman who is of color, who identifies herself as LGBTQ, you should have to be subjected to heteronormative conversations or just having your identity constantly under attack. So what we really wanted to do as the president of the Black Student Union, we proposed to President Stanley a list of initiatives. And I've been very gracious of how tentative and open administration has been to making sure this plan is coming to fruition. But we really want to make sure and just stress on the point that no one, regardless of where you're from, whether you're disabled, whether you're Black, Latino, yellow, the Grinch, you're comfortable. You're comfortable in your skin and you have support, because a lot of times if you are the one person that I singled out and you happen to be an engineering major or you happen to be in a hospital side, you might not feel supported. You might have a professor who may not understand your experiences and may perpetuate some of the discussions that may go against who you are. So we want to make sure, in my point as a student, making sure that we're pushing this forward and that Stony Brook is as inclusive as possible. And I know a lot of things are not specific to Stony Brook because we have a country who has a history that may be negative in many different ways. But making sure, as long as we are students and faculty and staff here, we're all one and we're united. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dwayne. Now the time of the program is for questions. We're going to address 2 questions that came over the website, and then we will open up the floor to as many questions as we can answer at this point in time. I'll read one question, and Lou is probably going to refer back to you, Lou. It said, does the initiative plan to address the declining number of African American Black students, faculty, and staff? Many of us have concerns about the retention and recruitment, and how do we open up opportunities for staff members of color to move to management positions, and if you cannot find qualified minority candidates for employment the traditional way, will you provide incentives to create them internally?
Yes, I know one of the issues, and I have a little bit of a prepared response for this, since it did come in on email. So Dr. Stanley has released an additional $100,000 to enhance recruitment efforts in minority communities and organizations. These will include adding campus visits, having current students contact accepted students, adding additional alumni events and admitted students, and improving communication and guidance counselors at targeted schools. Also, and I did mention a little bit in the main part of my presentation that we are working with various community groups, and we have worked with community groups, reaching out to tell individuals about the jobs that we have. We've looked at comprehensively our classification and compensation system, again, really making sure that the way that we're writing our job descriptions and whatnot is in a way that is inclusive and isn't excluding anybody. Also, within the university itself, there is a fairly robust internal promotional plan. So that is another way that we're looking. And I think with some of the other issues that we discussed today, that you know, again, it's about education, it's about communication.
Thank you, Lou. Smith,
Just-
President.
Yeah, just to add a little to what Lou said, and I think he covered it very well, but a couple things. One is that I think one of the things that's really been extraordinarily gratifying is the fact that our students want to be engaged in helping recruit other students to Stony Brook, and that's very important because they have extraordinary credibility when they talk to applicants about what's going on. So the fact is, Lou mentioned, we put $100,000 in to fund outreach programs that include our students, and this is an idea that came from the students. The students said, we want to get more engaged in this process. We think we have something to contribute, and it's a great idea, and we're really pleased they're willing to do that. We're going to continue to try and support that. The second thing, I think, which is really important is recruitment has to be tied into retention as well. If people are not happy here, if people don't view this as a welcoming climate, we're not going to be able to recruit people here. So I think they're tied together very closely, and you know, we haven't lost sight of that we have to do more to retain faculty, staff that are here, and to make sure that they think Stony Brook is a place where they can succeed and they're welcome. So both those things I think are really important. They're key, I think, in how we push diversity forward on our campus.
Thank you, President.
Just a reminder that these questions were submitted on the website, and feel free to submit your questions today. So this is the last website question we'll talk about, and then we'll open the questions to the floor. In a month or so, you will have all the questions that has been submitted in website answered. So none of the questions will go unanswered. So this question is for Dr. Stanley again. The Chancellor of the Cal State system has made a statement that the system will not cooperate with Trump administration to assist in the deportation of undocumented students. To assuage fears that some of our students are having, do you think we should make sure our Chancellor does the same? How will you protect our international and undocumented students from deportation or police harassment? How is the university responding to Governor Cuomo's 3-part plan to combat hate crimes?
So It's obviously an incredibly important question. There is a lot of concern. We have undocumented students at Stony Brook University, and so they are concerned about their future. We're receiving inquiries from international students who are thinking about applying to Stony Brook and are concerned about the climate in our country and whether they would be accepted at Stony Brook University. I've been a very strong supporter of DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, which protects students who were children when they arrived in the country with their parents. I think it's extraordinarily important. I think it's something we need to continue, and I signed on, along with more than 140 other university presidents, college and university presidents, a direct letter, essentially, to the incoming president-elect that says DACA needs to be continued. It was an executive order from President Obama. We need to see this continue because it's vitally important for students. In terms of the issue of being what may have been called a sanctuary campus or taking action if immigration enforcement should be attempted, first we have to say that right now at Stony Brook we have a number of policies that are designed to protect students. So for example, we don't ask immigration status in our applications. That's not a question we ask. We don't ask any students that question at all. Our police don't ask students that question unless they're arrested. We don't ask any questions about citizenship. We also, and the federal government at this point in time, the immigration enforcement component of immigration considers campuses to be what's called a sensitive area, where they don't do enforcement activities on college campuses. So as it stands now, I think our students are protected. Going forward, we have the challenge, of course, of being a state agency. So Stony Brook University is part of SUNY. SUNY is actually a state agency. So we're not a private university where, for example, we might have more ability to declare ourselves a sanctuary campus and deal with complications that may come from that. The Chancellor, Nancy Zimpher, is very aware of this issue. She and the General Counsel for the SUNY system, Joseph Porter, have put a memo out essentially to presidents and to campuses saying essentially that they're following this issue very closely, that the SUNY Board of Trustees would be the one to do anything. If there's initiative that SUNY is going to do, it would come from the SUNY Board of Trustees, wouldn't come from individual campuses per se. But I'll tell you, and again, I've talked to my peers, that all of us, that presidents I've talked to, are very united in trying to protect students on our campus and do everything we can to make sure they have a chance to pursue their education. It would be an extraordinary waste, as far as I'm concerned, of what the government does, to take these people who've overcome so much, who've come to our country and are really trying to make a difference in their life, who we've invested already in their education, and then say we're going to send them back to a country that they've never lived in or don't remember in their life. So I think we feel very strongly about this, but I can't give you an absolute reassurance as we go forward. But I think this is one area where political pressure will be very important on the administration. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley. At this point, we'll take some questions from the floor, please. If you would stand, if those who have a question.
Yes, how you doing, Sergio Cardenas, Hospital Construction. You were talking about retention of the staff and faculty here. I think that's a very valid point. And it just seems that our staff isn't represented exactly in the diversity of the community here. And, excuse me, what would be some of the steps that we could set up committees to make sure that that happens, and also to the blue-collar workers like housekeeping and construction, how we can get their input because they don't have computer available to them, and we need to have people on the ground floor working and getting their input to you so that it could be resolved.
So it's an excellent point, and I think one of the reasons we want to have these town halls is to get input and understand if there's areas where people feel they haven't had the chance, essentially, to state some of their concerns and be involved in the process. Not passing the buck, but I'm kind of passing the buck a little bit to simply say that, you know, as we've organized this process, and I think Judy's actually done a remarkable job of trying to organize it, being inclusive has been a big part of our goal to increase inclusivity on our campus. So this is something that we'll take to heart. I'd appreciate it if afterwards come up and talk to both of us so we can talk about ways in which we could do this better. Because we certainly don't want to feel anybody is left out of this process, and we want your voice to be heard in what we're going forward. And again, part of this is to get your feedback. I never came into this believing that I had all the answers to how to solve these problems. And I think one of the ways we're going to be stronger is hearing from everyone in this room and everybody on the campus about their ideas. We won't be able to implement every suggestion, of course, but we won't be able to implement them all if we don't hear them and know about them. So thank you for that comment, and we'll try and move that forward.
Will we have any more questions? I know, please stand.
I know, Lewis School of Medicine. What is the status of the CDO search?
So, Judy, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. The job description had been approved and I think is in the process.
Judy, I don't think everybody heard the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, the question was, what's the status of the Chief Diversity Officer search? And so the search had started, the job description had been approved, and what the search committee discovered was that the job description needed to get some revision. And so I believe it's just gone through that process and it's going to go back out. So it'll be posted again. My hope is that, I'm not on the search committee, but I'm sort of driving that search committee to conclusion. So our hope is that will, now that the job description's been revised and refined, that search will hit the ground running. We'd like to get somebody in as soon as possible.
Ann, would you please stand?
Yes, my name is Angela Ford. I'm the Affirmative Action Chair for the UUP HSC chapter here. Thank you, Dr. Stanley, for this town hall. We would like to lend our services, the Affirmative Action Committee, to any of these initiatives. We would like to be included. For the last 6 years, we've celebrated our diversity and our different cultures here at the HSC. Multiple events in the gallery, Taste of India, Taste of Asia, our Hispanic culture. Coming up this February is our Black History Month. We'll be celebrating. We've had Marjorie Leonard to speak for us, different speakers. So we'd like to be a part of it, Dr. Stanley. Anything that we can lend our information, our resources, anything at all, please include us.
Absolutely, and thank you. Your assistance would obviously be most welcome. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Yes, ma'am. Please stand.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. I'm Donna Buell with the Ombuds Office, formerly running the EAP. And I'm wondering if within our structure, if we could consider a model for retention. One of my family members works for Yale University, and they have an internal temporary services. And so what my sister did at one point in time, she went to different areas of the university, and you can go up to about 6 months when there's a job, a temporary job, and you can be able to work in that area, and you can also apply for the job that they're looking for. And so you get to know each other, and it might be able to be a match, and it's a way to retain people. In my former role in the AP, I helped people in various different areas, and I know we have a lot of talent and expertise here. And to keep our community, our family together, I've noticed people that were aides in the hospital that went to Suffolk, became LPNs, got hired here. I think if we can help each other internally and retain our people and grow within, I don't know if that's a concept that can be embraced, but I just want to present that.
It was a question here. Ms. Bain.
Not a question or comment. I certainly would, I'm so pleased with the plan, but I would like for us to go over it and to make sure that we set a precedent, not making a group feel less than, and try to take out non-English speaking, because there's no student on this campus who does not speak English. And to talk about predominantly Spanish speaking. We would never say to a man that you're non-female. So just make sure that we have the language that really advances us to make a statement to others who are coming up with diversity.
Thank you. Question, ma'am, please stand.
Yes. Kimberly Dixon, I work at the Career Center on the side of campus. And I just wanted to mention that it would be also great to hear more about or to even participate in sharing information on how we can help underrepresented students, whether it be undergraduate students, graduate students, prepare for life after. There are a lot of programs that are available outside of Stony Brook that we're already giving access to students, but there's additional prep work that our students need so that they are prepared and can present themselves in the right way for industry, for graduate schools, and beyond.
So, kind of in line with that, my name is Lyle Tomlinson, and I am a neuroscience PhD student here at Stony Brook. So I've actually currently been working on a graduate student internship pipeline because what she said is absolutely true. So if you look at recent policy reports, students who have PhDs basically have a 10.6% chance of getting the job that they're being trained for. And there was another article that came out recently in the Atlantic stating that 36 to 54% of minority students at the end of their PhD career have less of an interest in PhD-related careers compared to their white or Asian counterparts. And this is after you account for number of publications, interest at the start of their career. And so I've been working with the IREP office and a number of other people to try to establish an internship pipeline where students can take some of the time that they're spending in lab and also working with the Biotech Hub and also trying to get in contact with the Suffolk County Legislature. So this is a long rift, but essentially we're applying for a pilot grant from the Welcome Boroughs Fund for $30,000 and $50,000. So if you guys are interested in working with us, and if you guys are interested in matching the amount of money that we get, if we get the grant.
All right. I'll go with that one. Go ahead, Anthony.
I don't think you need me to respond except to say thank you, Lyle, for everything that you've done. And I want to mention that Lyle has also been a major force behind a new course that's being offered by the graduate school this year, led by Thomas Woodson from Tech and Society, GRD 520, which is a science policy course available to all STEM PhD students at the university.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a great idea, and I'm definitely interested in helping. And I think it's it's incredibly important, as you talked about, for students of color, graduate students of color, but also important for all of our graduate students in terms of having these kind of options in terms of what they want to do and being trained appropriately. So we'll be very interested in helping. So.
Question to Dr. Pasternak.
Well, more of a comment. So I want to first thank Dr. Stanley and the team for coming here and giving us the chance to do this on our home turf, but also on behalf of a hospital with 6,000 employees, which is the largest block of individuals. It's critically important for us to do this for a number of reasons. You've heard those, but there's also another one. It's because the community comes in here every day en masse, and for many people, the way they think of Stony Brook is how they interact with the people here in this hospital. So whether it's in the clinics or on the floors or other business, we have a special interest in participating in ensuring that we are presenting that face of the university to the public in the way we care for people. So, count on our support.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, please.
I'm Gonzalez, Pharmapsychiatry. The READY program sounds really amazing and much needed, and I guess I was wondering what efforts are being done to really roll that out to higher administration and leaders at the university. To what degree it can be like a required thing that people participate in? Because my concern is that people who would need training like that probably wouldn't volunteer to.
So it's as we talked about, it's probably difficult from a personnel matter to say you're mandated to do a particular kind of seminar. Having said that, my expectation is the senior leadership of the university understands how important this is to me. I evaluate their performance in many different ways, and so I think it's I'm happy to serve. They do, so I'm happy to extend notice to everybody that it's my expectation. I know Senior Vice President Dexter Bailey has already taken it. I know others have as well, Rodney. So I think it's getting adopted, but I think it's going to be very important going forward. But thank you for that suggestion. So.
Thank you. I think on behalf of the President and the Advisory Council and the working groups and the steering committee, I want to thank all of you very much for taking time to come out today for the Diversity Plan Town Hall meeting.
And if you haven't done so, please visit the website. The
Please
website
do.
will have the questions and the answers posted. If you have more questions, use the website to post your questions. If you don't want to use the public forum, please use the website. Absolutely.
Thank you all.